Good evening and welcome to Around the Lake, broadcast by the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes community newspapers about stories that are happening around the Ithaca and Tompkins County area. Today we're going to be talking about affordable housing, which was the cover story for the Ithaca Times this week, and we're going to be talking about a boycott that's being proposed well, actually, it's not a boycott at Cornell. We talked about the boycott of Israeli goods at Green Star last week, but this week we're going to be speaking about an attempt on the part of some students to get Cornell to divest from investments that concern Israel. And we're going to go on to more stories after that. There was a public service committee hearing at the county level where they received the full report of the sheriff on the incident in Danby, as I refer to it. And then there is a group home that is going in out in Danby, and the residents of Danby aren't too keen on the idea, so we'll be talking about that too. So, Josh, affordable housing.
Let's start with the light stuff, shall we?
Yeah, pretty sure that's true. Nothing funny this week.
So affordable housing, this cover was, it wasn't the most fun to write, but it was good to get a handle on really what affordable housing means, because it seems to be a term that's thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. And what I really ended up focusing on, or what I could get into, 3,000 words, was, how do you build, especially for rent, but also for sale, affordable housing, not necessarily really low income, not government public, what's known as public housing, but privately funded. And this can be for-profit, nonprofit companies. I talked to Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services Director Paul Mazzarella. I talked to Conifer, which has developed a fair amount of properties around Ithaca, including Linderman Place,
actually
West
all
Hill.
over.
Linderman Creek.
Yeah, Linderman Creek, that's right. Or Creek,
they're
as
a big
Pennsylvanians
company,
say.
so they're sort of a regional concern.
Yeah, they're out of Rochester, but I think they've done projects in like 8 or 10 states.
And then you talked to Susan Cosentini, too.
Talked to Susan Cosentini, who's got her pocket homes on Aurora Street, which are brightly painted and sort of the co-housing neighborhood around a backyard concept. And the short of it is that the financing to build something that has these affordable sort of controls is incredibly difficult to get around, and regular, so to speak, developers like locals like Frost Travis, John Novar, who did Collegetown Terrace, want really nothing to do with it because it's a completely different process. Mm-hmm. You're competing for they call low-income tax credits, which were put into the federal tax code in 1986, and you basically have to say, hey, state, we want this money. The state has so many credits to dole out. Mm-hmm. It's a competitive process, like 1 in 5 projects that apply get funded. And there's all these different criteria. It was like a 70-page application instructions, know. And then once you have the credits, you can sell them through what these middlemen called syndicators, who then get free money from banks, investors, corporate investors are allowed to get these tax credits. So
the corporations get your tax credits and you get their money.
Yes.
And you build housing.
Yeah, technically they just give you money for the credits.
Right.
But getting to that point where the money's coming in is very competitive. Mm-hmm. Like Breckenridge Place, which INH just did, it was a green building that gives you, as Mazzarella calls them points. There's not really a set up point system, but green housing gets you points. Being downtown gets you points because it's more accessible, and that's kind of, especially in Ithaca, a lot of the crux of the problem is there's not a lot of land to build on, but you want these sort of places to be accessible to transportation. You want to be able to people to walk to the grocery store. There's a lot of focus and planning on reducing environmental impact by reducing sprawl. So that's kind of really the key there is it's hard to find places to put these up.
And it's called affordable housing. How do they define affordable?
Well, a lot of it's based on your area median income, which I think in Ithaca for like a single person, it's a aspirational $27,000 or so.
What's aspirational mean?
Aspirational to me.
You hope to aspire to that?
I aspire to $27,000 a year. So you have that's like 50% of the median income, I think.
Right.
So if you have so many apartments in, say, Breckenridge that are, let's say, half are set aside for people with that median income or under, and then another number are set at like 80% or under, and then that's also like how many units for real low incomes can you get in there? That's also kind of a points thing, and also show that the financing works over the long term. So there's a lot of challenges. But INHS has been building things, Conifer has been building things, but these certainly aren't to be thought of as, rent controlled in a sense, or even though rents do kind of like stagger depending on your income level. So don't expect like 12 more towers like Breckenridge to pop up downtown anytime soon.
Yeah, I think you came up with a number of 400 units available, or not available.
INHS, once now that's not including anything Conifer built or anyone else. INHS, once they merge with the Better Housing for Tompkins County, which will happen, I think, later this year, or maybe next year. Don't quote me on that, but they'll have something like 500 some under management. That's not including certain places they built for sale, like the project on East Hill that's townhomes, I think like 45 units. I'm blanking on the name, but 45 units or so for sale, townhomes on property that Cornell gave them or sold them.
Okay.
So, yeah, something like 500 some. That's just INHS. That's not including like Linderman Creek or anything else that's been developed by anyone else. So,
Okay, that's out in the town anyway.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is there isn't a whole lot of affordable housing.
Well, that hasn't changed since I started writing this story. So that's why it was written.
All right. And it's difficult to get it built.
Yeah.
No question.
And it's not something you get into if you're just looking to.
Well, John Novar's comment was pretty priceless.
He's a straight shooter. Yes, said something, if I was passionate about serving the underprivileged, I could probably figure it out quicker than someone on the street, I think was the gist of it.
Yeah.
But it's still, his point was really that it's still a completely different animal than getting bank financing for something like Collegetown Terrace. Just a completely different thing to do. So.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants to find out more about that, Josh talked to a lot of people, and it's a very complete article. So thanks.
That's the idea.
So, actually, why don't we just go to the Unity House to give Josh a rest?
Oh, okay. So.
And the Unity House, where are they based, by the way?
They used to be based downtown where the Argos Inn is now, if I remember correctly. So I
don't know where they went.
I'm not sure where they went. I think they moved to Lansing, but I could be wrong about where their headquarters is, because that's just the headquarters. They operate a number of group homes in Tompkins County for adults with developmental disabilities.
So what do they? Why are they out in Danby meeting with the town residents out there?
Well, they bought a home out there, and they're going to move in 3 residents, 3 adult men with developmental disabilities. The problem came when it was announced that 2 of the men will be or have level 3 sex offender status. And so people found this out late last week. The Unity House representative, the director of residential services, Amy Santabianco, said at the town hall meeting in Danby this Monday that she and her team went around talking to the neighbors, to tell them that this was coming. The neighbors didn't feel like they had been contacted adequately, and then the rumor mill started to churn, and people were frightened, they were upset, they were looking for ways to stop it. And so there was a fairly heated meeting in Danby at the town hall on Monday. with Liz Smith, the director of Unity House, Kevin Cowan, who is the officer who supervises all the registered sex offenders in Tompkins County.
What kind of officer is he? Like a police officer?
I believe he's he was blue.
Oh, okay.
Blue, so state trooper?
Okay.
Or they, right? Or they,
His uniform is blue. I hope that
his
is
blue.
He's part of the Blue Man troop.
Right, he was, but at any rate, that's it. His job is to monitor them, and according to what level of sex offender you are, that's how often you have to check in. So if you're level 3, you have to check in every month. And they keep pretty close track of your whereabouts. However, the 2 men whose identities are not officially released, and Unity House has said they'll release their identities as soon as they know. But they did say that these offenses are 25 and 30 years old. That
The offenses, not the offender.
The offenses, yes. The offenders, if I'm correct, there were 2 men in the Binghamton Health Center, which is being shut down, which is why these individuals are being moved into the communities.
Right.
At any rate, one of them is 75 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and then one of the men living in the household is not a sex offender. He's just a regular guy. What Liz Smith was at pains to explain is that the state, New York State, is shutting down mental hospitals and shutting down these developmental centers like the one in Broome that we have all over the state for people with developmental disabilities, because it's part of deinstitutionalizing
Which has been going on
people.
for decades.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while, and now it's they really are shutting it down. So they had wards, or I believe there were freestanding units at the Broome Developmental Center where they had people who had had some kind of interaction with the criminal justice system. So now these folks are being returned to the communities or near the communities that they came from and living in group homes.
And yeah, I read your story, and one of the things that came out was that there's not a whole lot that the residents or the town government can do about this at all.
No, absolutely not. People wondered if it could be prevented through zoning. They said, well, it's a single-family home. Rebecca Brenner of the Danby Town Board said, no, I looked into that. 3 unrelated adults can live together. You know, that counts as single-family housing. And Rick Dietrich, who's the Danby Town Supervisor, said there's really nothing the town can do to prevent this. Our hands are tied.
His company was legal.
Right.
Yeah, the question I had is, as far as notification goes, because that's often, it seems, where people first have their level of outrage and something. Is there any required notification for something like this? Is there anything on the books that people are, or is it just more of a, like, people find it out?
I think they do feel obligated to tell the neighbors, but sex offenders are registered, and you can just go to the website and see who are the registered sex offenders. So, you know, you can find the other people in Tompkins County if they're level 3.
Yeah.
So what Kevin Cowan was saying, Officer Cowan was saying, is that with level 3, you know who they are. You can find their names and their faces and where they live. Level 2, he said they could be living next door to you and you have no idea. That being said, what goes into establishing the level of an offense or a level of an offender could be, it's a variety of factors, only one of which is the severity of the crime.
Oh.
So the offense itself could be fairly minor, but if the person has a history of petty theft leading up to that, then they would say, oh, well, you know, more likely to reoffend. Or if they have, or their mental capacity could also be a factor.
I was going to ask, yeah.
Right, in that they might not have a full understanding
Of what they did wrong.
of their actions.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, we probably not heard the last of this, or probably, because they may be other houses that are going to be set up elsewhere.
Possibly. I mean, a Unity House already has 6 individuals of this status in their houses, but this one came into the public eye because it was new. In the other cases, these are people moving into houses that are already established
I
group
see.
homes.
Okay. All right. Well, then, thank you. Back over to Josh, I guess.
What?
You covered the proposed boycott of Israeli goods at Green Star, which may or may not get anywhere. But this week you looked at what was going on the Cornell campus, and I got calls about this at the Ithaca Times a month ago, that there were a number of incidents up there of Jewish people being harassed by pro-Palestine people. So what is going on?
Well, I got what I could into the story. It's
Yeah,
obviously delicate
wide
stuff.
and deep, yeah.
I think the impetus for starting this one specifically at this time was the founding of what it's called the Louis D. Brandeis Center, which is at the law school, and it's a national organization. I talked to the founder, Ken Marcus, but that chapter at Cornell was just founded in February. And then actually after I think we both talked or had some interaction with them, then this Green Star boycott came up, so I decided to dive in a little bit more and see where this boycott, divestment, sanctions movement was on campus. And as far as so far as the people I've had the chance to talk to so far, I'm sure this will be ongoing. A lot of the concern from the Jewish community, or the talk that there was some anti-Semitic actions, stem from the fact there was a resolution in the Student Assembly last April 2014, and then there was a sit-in staged by students in favor of BDS, like at the next meeting, I think. And then several protests in the fall put on by, there were students for justice in Palestine, but there's also unrelated protesters. And I talked to one I didn't print her comments in the story, but I thought was interesting, was she was on video saying some not nice things. Let's put it that way. About
the state of
blank,
Israel's
blank,
policies?
you Zionist blank sort of thing.
I see.
And that was one of the incidents that was mentioned as a more aggressive actual.
Sure.
That, and I also couldn't find the student, but it was reported by the Cornell Review and also on William Jacobson's blog, Legal Insurrection, that a student, with like an pro-Israel sign or something, had a cup of water dumped on him.
Oh.
And as reported by those outlets and also cited by this David Horowitz Center's kind of Jewish Hatred Watch, or something along those lines, they had Cornell as the #2 anti-Semitic university. But as far as actual, that I have heard of that they cite, those were the main incidents. And this was at a protest like November 19th
I read
last year.
The David Horowitz citation was largely because the student council, or whatever they call them at Cornell, was actually got to the point of having a resolution to
Which
ask.
they did, and the thing is, when you talked, I had a chance to speak to one SJP member at Cornell, and I've reached out to people who have been, basically published in these papers, both there and at IC, but, I'm sure I'll be hearing back more as this goes on. But the sort of the SJP types, or at least the one.
Are they making an effort to distance themselves from people?
Well,
I would think that the
it's
people
mostly,
make anti-Semitic
just
statements are
unfortunate
kind of
incidents
fringy.
like that. Yeah.
I actually think the answer to your question is no. They're not trying hard enough.
Right.
That's my perception, reading through this.
I think
Because
They
for
could
something
try
like
harder.
this boycott movement to be effective, I would think that would be a part of
Yeah.
their
that's
plan
that's
is
what the
to
student
point out that they're
with
not
SJP
right.
told me. I think I printed at least part of that. But I think a lot of the tension here is that you do have this sort of, what is a Zionist? And I think to people on sort of the SJP, the boycott side, a Zionist is someone who just, basically wants to wipe Palestinians out of, greater Judea.
That's their definition.
I think, in a general working sense, that's my impression that, especially more ardent supporters might have. And on the flip side, a Zionist means someone who's, just wants a homeland for Israel, and maybe, maybe there can be a solution worked out. Maybe we can have peace. So I think there's a lot of tension at that idea that something like the David Horowitz Center or someone who kind of aligns in that realm. Basically anything like having even a resolution in a student assembly was tabled. Which SJP types at Cornell were like, they didn't, usually almost everything gets voted on, because for one, it doesn't really have that much power anyway. Skorton, President Skorton's not just going to be like, oh, the assembly passed this resolution, now I'm not investing in SodaStream or whatever. Like that's not how Cornell works.
Happen, yeah.
So SJP was like, well, they didn't even consider it, they're like shutting us up. So, but the fact for someone like William Jacobson, who comes out very strongly pro-Israel, even considering the fact that and of course there's also distinctions to be made.
Well, these resolutions have been passed successfully at some other universities.
Sure. So. Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, in the UC system, the California system. I'm blanking. I know there's a few others. Hampshire College was one.
Yeah, Hampshire is one. Yeah. Which is, I don't know, only got about 500 people there. So
yeah.
Maybe easier to get things done than Cornell.
Sure. So I'm sure this will continue, and you kind of saw the level of interest.
That's true. I naively, as it turns out, put we have a pie chart on the front page of Ithaca.com, and I asked, would you support a boycott of Israeli goods? Assuming, again, naively, that people read our paper if they look at our website, and that they would have seen your story about the proposed boycott, which is going through the normal channels at Green Star toward their board and then to their membership. It may or may not get that far, but it's being proposed. And a lot of people apparently didn't know that. It should have been a much more detailed question. And so we usually get like not that many votes on those pie chart things. We got almost 2,000 on this, and I got a lot of phone calls, and two of them were telling me that on Facebook or somewhere, people were being urged to vote, in the old Chicago style, early and often, by going to different IP addresses and voting in.
Clear your cookies.
Yeah, and so I sat there after being told this. I sat there and refreshed my screen with the pie chart, and the wedge of pro boycott just grow and grow and grow, because there was apparently just hundreds of people voting all at once and doing it again and again, and so that is cheating. And so I took down the poll, and I didn't think it was funny, nor did I think it was particularly good advocacy practice.
Yeah.
And so I put up a poll saying, do you think this is good? Well, in shorthand, do you think this is this cheating or not? And sadly, 15% of people who voted thought it was not cheating at all. That you should apparently win any way you can.
If you're going to gauge public opinion, the squeaky wheel it counts for more.
Even if they're ghost squeaky wheels.
Right.
As I wrote about the dogs issue, how much efficacy any sort of online activism like that has is questionable at best.
Well, yeah, that was an interesting.
But it betrays a spirit,
story.
which is pretty uncool.
Yeah.
So, you can't be pro-democracy and then screw with, forms of democracy. Vote. If you want to win in a democracy, and you take, the old Chicago style of sending people to vote a lot of times, I don't think that's
you
actually
haven't
democracy.
Convinced anyone of your point of view, which is
really
the John Stuart Mill.
It's kind of a
replace it if you don't. Right, if you think it's a bad idea, replace it with a better one.
Right. Well, so this issue, this international issue, apparently it's quite huge in Europe. And is growing nationally here with what we were saying before about various campuses bringing this to the fore. I don't think it's going to go away here, and we'll keep covering it, even though it might not be that much fun. Yeah,
I would not call this the most fun story I've ever covered.
No. No, there's a lot of rhetoric on both sides, and trying to sort out the complete bullshit from people actually talking facts has proven to be very difficult all along the way here. Whether you're looking online or you're talking to people get pretty carried away with their rhetoric, and make a lot of claims that they can't really back up.
Well, and there's certainly also a lot of sort of this ethical balancing, and you'll see arguments that favor, I guess, the Israel side. And it's hard even to have shorthand for what side is which.
Yeah.
Because some people
Because it
probably,
doesn't really,
there's
on the
splinters.
fringes, there are people,
Yeah.
yes, that don't want Israel at all or don't want Palestinians there, want a
Yeah.
holy Jewish state. Like, those people definitely exist. Read the internet, read the comments. But, yeah, so splitting that up is just tough. And then also you have the issue of there's a lot of nuances where, a lot of pro-Israel people say, well, if, Israel was an Arab state, the West would be, applauding them because they're a democracy, they're, women can
Which
drive,
is,
et cetera, et cetera.
Is not true.
And-
That's a pretty good example.
Yeah, and on the flip, so why aren't, maybe it wasn't quite clear in the article, that's something Jacobson kind of said, like, why is there this double standard? I mean,
Well, we'll have to come back to this. We're out of time for today, but we'll be talking about it down the road, one way or the other. So thank you for joining us. This has been Around the Lake, a broadcast at the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes community newspapers, and we'll be back again.
Don't forget to
next
plug
week.
our
montage
choir-
maker.
opening montage.
Go ahead, plug away.
Oh no, I don't remember.
It's
what
by
that is.
4D
I was going to
photography.
say our 5th grader from California asking for information.
Oh yeah,
that's
Sophia
right.
Neiberg. Look at the paper in the letters section, and if you want to help out a 5th grader in California who wants to learn about New York, go ahead and send her some pamphlets and brochures.
It's a 5th grader who wants mail.
So thank you very much, and bye-bye.